Thanks for coming out, you guys. Just wanted to, first off, I want to start off with thanking everyone for the last 2 years who have been praying for me and standing in my corner and supporting me, even if I don't know you, but my family and friends have just been amazing this last couple years. So we've just passed the 2nd year anniversary since David was killed. So it's been a hard 2 years, but it's also been a lot of healing too. So today obviously came a shock. I wasn't really expecting anything to happen this morning because I haven't heard anything since probably the first of the year when the remains were found down in Falcon Lake. So just to kind of catch everyone up of where we're at, all we know is that the Mexico authorities have captured somebody and they have them detained, and who possibly had something to do with David's murder and also the other murders along the border and the mass graves. So we are still waiting to hear from any Mexico authorities and U.S. authorities. We have contacted the State Department in Matamoros. We've also contacted FBI and also the Romney organization, and then also Obama. We have not heard from or were able to get anyone with the Obama administration, but we were able to leave messages and talk to people with the Romney FBI. We have some contacts in Mexico that we're waiting to hear back from also. Unfortunately, that's really about all that we know. We're waiting to hear from people with the authorities to find out who he is, and not only that, how is he linked to David's murder. And if he is linked, and if he had something to do with David's murder, we're waiting to hear what that is. And also we're asking anybody of the U.S. authorities to be able to reach out to Mexico and find out where is David, where are his remains. And if this gentleman, the suspect, does have involvement, we want to know where David's at, and let's get some evidence of his remains, and let us as a family 2 years later be able to have some closure and be able to truly move on and move forward. On top of all of that, we're asking the Mexico authorities and U.S. About death certificate. We're 2 years later, and according to Colorado state laws, I have to wait 3 more years. So we are asking Mexico to help us out in that aspect of my life also. So any authorities that would be able to help us with that is much appreciated.
Do you have confidence in the Mexican government that he will go to trial and he will stand for this murder?
It's definitely hard to have that confidence. I know I think it was a Border Patrol agent or one of the ICE agents where they caught all those people who had involvement with the shooting and killing. They caught all these guys, but last I heard that they have been released.
Because about 1.5 years ago we talked, there had been another arrest, and that turned out to be
Right.
a false alarm.
Right.
So how confident are you that this could be the real thing?
We're hopeful. I mean, we always have to be hopeful, and that this will, move forward to him being prosecuted or David's remains being found, finding some closure. It's hard to have that, but at the same time, we're hopeful. I mean, I always have to have my hope, and I have the last 2 years. And we just believe in, God's grace is going to be amongst this, and his favor will definitely be in our lives.
So your priority, you were telling me before, is to get the body back here to the U.S.
Right. I mean, that's been our call ever since day one, that David would be found and that his remains would be returned so we could, honor him the way that he wanted to be, but as a family be able to find that closure too.
And you've been wanting that. You've been vocal about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying that you're adjusting to imagining your future without David.
Right.
Was finding out what you found out this morning, was that even in the picture for you?
No, not at all. I mean, we haven't heard anything since the beginning of the year. And I'm constantly, almost on a weekly basis, in contact with the State Department down in Matamoros, and or at least I'm emailing them. I don't always hear back, but no. I mean, today was a complete out of the blue shock for me. I hadn't heard from anybody or any news for, 10 months now? And so, yeah, my life was not expected to have this turn.
Have you heard this name as a suspect before?
No, I haven't.
And you mentioned that it was hard to have confidence in the Mexican authorities in terms of the investigation.
Right.
Do you think that the U.S. authorities are doing everything that they can do, or are you even able to get a picture of what they're up to doing?
I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what Mexico's doing. We're kind of been in this limbo for 2 years now, wondering what's going on. We do have the lawsuits out, but a lot of that was just different communications back and forth, but not real concrete of saying anything for us truly to say this is what happened. A lot of speculation of what happened that day. So it's really hard to really feel like this is going to be the final, but, at the same time, we're very hopeful that it will, because we want some closure as a family.
So you've kind of been through this before, as we were talking about. So when you first heard this news, you seem like you're a little tempered. Is it because you've gone through this before and no results?
I do right now. I mean, what you see right now, I've had time to process it. I was very emotional when I first got the text and when I talked, and at the same time, you want to be I'm so tied to this situation and I'm so emotional about it, but at the same time I want to have the mindset of knowing that this could just be another bump in the road, and I always have to prepare myself for those two scenarios. But of course, we're thrown back. The moment I got that, I was thrown back 2 years ago and feeling the same emotions and wondering, is this going to be it? Like, am I finally going to get what I've been looking for?
Who sent you the text?
A media friend of mine down in Texas.
Does it make you realize that he's not forgotten, that they're still working on it?
Yes.
Is there some comfort in that?
There is comfort in that, knowing that David hasn't been forgotten. And for 2 years, I mean, his name comes up a lot. Anything that happens in Mexico, it's brought up. But then I also get messages from people I don't really know, or friends and family, letting me know that they're thinking of me and my family and David's family and amongst all of this. And so we're definitely being held up in prayers, and I have been for 2 years, so I can't thank everyone enough.
You were talking a little earlier about just, how you feel like you're finally getting to the point where you have more good days than bad. Is that the case, or how would you describe it again?
I do. I feel like time does heal your wounds, but I feel from last year to this year, I'm completely in a different spot in my life. I feel like I have been able to see that, yes, David's not here, and that's hard for me to imagine. I'd rather him be here than not. But I also know that my life with David, isn't my future. And so I do have to find a new life and find a new path. And unfortunately, it's not with David, but I do have to find that in time, and I do see my future moving forward.
What emotions are left? I mean, I don't know what roller coaster this has been like, from pain to anger to what, but, what, on a day-to-day basis, not even today, what is left that sort of nags at you?
A lot of just mainly that my life has changed completely and it's turned upside down. I mean, that's the hardest thing for me, I think, is I go from one moment of, seeing family and seeing a future with David and starting a family to completely starting all over from nothing. I mean, my husband's gone, everything's gone. I'm basically starting over. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me, is just being able to come back out of, hitting rock bottom to finally getting my feet back up and moving forward.
So what's the next step for you now, Tiffany? What, you waiting to hear from them? confirmation? Or?
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear from anyone. I mean, we've got calls out to in all these different agencies, and we haven't really heard back from any of them. So we're kind of in the waiting process. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have a little bit more information.
And you're talking about more information, wanting to have more information. What are those specific blanks that you want to have filled in for you with this arrest?
Well, I want to know, what does he have to do, like, how, what does he have to do with David's murder? Is it, I don't believe that he pulled the trigger. I believe it's probably he either said, yes, go ahead, or he had something to do with the guys who were behind it. But that's what we're really looking for, is what is his link to David, and where, does he know where David's body is? Does he know where the remains are? Same questions we had 2 years ago. Where is David, and who had the involvement in all of this?
But at least now someone's in custody, so you got to
Right.
know a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I pray that the Mexico authorities and officials keep him there, and that they question him and ask him how he's linked to David, and how is he linked to this, the Zeta cartels. And I know that he's part of many other murders in Mexico, so I know that their hands are full. But they mentioned David. He's a U.S. citizen. So I pray that Mexico and U.S. can work together and at least find some answers and help us get those answers and get some closure.
What kind of closure would a conviction bring?
I don't know if the conviction necessarily would. I think more of the closure of his remains being able to be found, or at least knowing that, what happened to David. I mean, I know what happened, what I saw, but I don't know what happened after I left.
Yeah, you saw, something that's just pretty horrible and traumatic, and obviously the bigger, longer lasting impact is the loss of your husband, but have you done anything to sort of help yourself deal with the sort of trauma of that specific day, and what's that been like coming back from?
I was in counseling for working through that. Because you have that day, very similar to the shootings in Aurora. I can sympathize with every single person in that room. I know from the girl whose boyfriend was protecting her, to the friends that ended up maybe having to leave somebody behind or losing a spouse. I can relate to so many of their stories that I know exactly what they're going through. And if I can encourage them, knowing that, yes, you can get through this and you will be able to move forward. But the trauma itself and having that daily visual, aspect of that day, you can't hide it. And you can't put it away, because then it will come back. And so I think from day one, I haven't had that opportunity. I've had to talk about my story from day one. So I think that has really helped me to be able to move forward, and at least through the healing process. This last year has been a major healing for me, of just being able to work through a lot of those emotions and a lot of the whys, and why did this happen? Why did this and why that? And then also the survival guilt that a lot of the shooting victims are going to feel. I had that. Why did I have to live and David have to die? So I know a lot of those victims are going to be going through it, but they're survivors too. And I have to look at that for myself, as I'm a survivor of a horrible tragedy. So
You talked about daily visuals. Do you still see it every day? Is that what you're saying still? Or?
I don't. I could. If I wanted to, I could definitely put myself back in that day. But I choose not to, because it's so hard to be there. I feel like if I was looking at that day every single day, I would be, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Is there anything specific that you do want to say to the Aurora shooting victims?
Well, I'd love to say to all of them that I know what you're going through, and I would love to extend my an ear to listen. I mean, I know each one of them are probably going, not many people except for in that room know what I went through, and I do know what they went through. So I would love to be a person if they want to talk to and visit with, and any struggles they're going through, I would love to be open. I mean, my phone, and I'm here for them. So I do know what they're going through, and I would love to talk to them and help them any way I can.
Do you think you'd be able to answer these questions with this much strength? Not to sound cheesy, but with this much strength a year ago?
No, I don't. I think, well, I know God's grace and His favor in my life has really gotten me where I'm at. I've stood on Him. I've had to continue my faith where I could easily have walked away from my faith, and I chose not to. I chose to run to God instead, and because I knew He would give me the strength I needed to be able to handle the media and to handle the traumatic, event that I had to go through, and losing my spouse and having to do all of that. There's no way I would have been able to do what I've done today or be here today without His strength and His love.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.